Welcome to the 9th Net That Haul Compass show of the 21-22 season. Hibbo can't be here today, but I am joined by my co-host and fellow Fantasy Football Hub writer at FPL Lens. Gabriel, how are you, buddy?
Happy to be sailing the seas of FPL with you this early game week, Nima. I'm doing well, buddy.
Nice.
So in this very special episode, Nima, we are joined by Luke Jerdy, host of the FPL Triple Captain podcast. Welcome, Luke. How are things?
Well, I sold Ivan Toney for Raul Jimenez, so things aren't great at the moment. No, I'm all good. I'm over it. Honestly, I'm over it. No, I'm all good. Thanks, Gabe. Really pleased to be here and appreciate you having me on.
Well, Luke, I don't know if we're going to get through this show without sharing sob stories. I can tell you about all of the 50-50s that went the opposite way from my wild card, and we'll each give each other a shoulder here to cry on.
Good to know.
Yeah, you guys can support each other. I'm having a great start to the year. I haven't come down from the clouds yet. But before we do get into it with you, Luke, I'm just going to do a bit of housekeeping out of the way. So there's lots of new viewers tonight. So let's hit that like button, hit subscribe if you're new to the channel. If you could do a quick run through of the mini league, please, Gabe.
Yes. So sorry, I lost it here. So we have our mini league, right? The code is FG1XMB. We got 3 prizes. First prize is a mystery football shirt box from @ShirtLootBox. The second prize is a copy of FPL Obsessed by Matt Whelan. And third prize is a premium annual membership to @Fantasy Football Fix tool that we use obviously all the time, kind of every week. For those watching on the VOD, if you have any questions you want answered for Gameweek 6, just leave us a comment and we'll definitely reply. We'll get that on the screen. So just leave us those questions in there.
Nice one. So just to say hi as well, we like to do this to the live viewers who join us on the day. Just a quick shout out to everyone who's here. Say hi to them before we then go into the interview with you, Luke. Find out a bit about you as a manager of FPL, how you got started, and topical conversation for Game Week 6 that I think everyone's interested to know your thoughts. So just say hi to Aiden. Thanks for joining us. Hi to Andy Martin, another friend of the show. Thanks for coming as always. To Hindeb, welcome. FPL_Sav, welcome. Blue Danube guy, nice to see you. At FPL Mike Halpin, nice to see you as well. We've got Akshat Dioli, nice to see you. We also have Surav Mukherjee, FPL Dallas. Dread, my boy, Julian. I'm looking forward to this FPL meetup that hopefully Luke's not kind of had his child by then and he can't join us. But we'll talk about that too, I'm sure. At Bagan Boy, nice to see you. At Hordorofi, thank you for coming back. Hi, Matthew Saloom. Hi, Pranesh P. And I think as the show goes on, we'll obviously pull up some of the comments from the viewers and we'll get going. But let's go straight into it with you, Luke. So I'd love to kind of hear about just your kind of FPL manager style, when you got started. So looking at your recent history, you've obviously come 96K, 31K, and 9K in the last 3 years. So tell us a little bit about kind of how did you get started in 2012, and at what point did you make that transition from a casual player like we all were and into an obsessed manager as you are now?
Yeah, to be honest, I mean, I'm shocked that my rank from 2012-13 was like 124K. I'm like, how did I manage that? Yeah, I was very much like very casual. I mean, I think clearly I mean, I can't really remember, but clearly I gave up halfway through 15, 16 and 16, 17. That's what I'm telling myself anyway. Yeah, basically, I think it was towards the back end of 17, 18. I started listening to the FPL Surgery. Just kind of thought one day, I was like, I'd quite like to be good at FPL. And thought, oh, maybe I'll just search for some podcasts. So started listening to that. And I was a guest on that, I think, at the very end of 17, 18 season. So started taking it seriously 18, 19, and did really well. And then suddenly kind of realized that there was this huge community of people that are as kind of interested in stats and obsessive about football as I am, which was brilliant to see. And just kind of went from there, really. I think this is our third season of hosting Triple Captain. So I think start of 1920 was when we first first started, and then did it yesterday. Did it last season as well. It's been a long day. Did it last season as well, and then this season is our third year. So, yeah, I think before kind of 17, 18, I can't really remember like even playing it. It must have been. I think I used to be like, I'd look at the Scout, Fantasy Premier League Scout, and be like, oh, who are they picking? Okay, I'll put that person in, which obviously never went well. So yeah, that's kind of my brief FPL history, really.
Just for anyone on podcast format as well, I guess, who can't see the kind of the slides, I thought I'd mention that. So yeah, you had an incredible first year, considering it was a casual year. You had almost top 100k. The seasons you gave up, I'm sure Gabe will relate to them too. I know we've all had them here, all three of us. There's a few kind of 7-digit ranks, but your first serious season, 9k, that's incredible. I only have the one top 10k myself, so I think it's a very elusive thing, and I will ask you a bit about how it was that season later. But I guess the next thing I wanted to say is just for anyone who doesn't know as well, check out FPL Triple Captain, Luke's show. I've listened quite a few times over this season, and it's quite a nice show. I really enjoy it, and I think I was new to it when I found out you were a fellow kind of, well, you're half Persian, I'm full Persian, but when I found out there was another Iranian FPL content creator, I was just in shock, to be honest, and I had to start listening at that point. But yeah, it's nice to have you here. Salam, Luke Cheturi.
Yes. Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, to be honest, I wish I knew more. I wish I knew more Farsi. I know very, very little, but it's definitely a side of me that, well, it's half of me, of course, and that I'd like to explore a lot more. And yeah, it was great to see a fellow Persian. I didn't realize you were full Persian actually, but yeah, it's great.
I was actually born in Tehran, and then I came to the UK when I was 5. Yeah, so it was
fantastic.
I've been here my whole life mainly, but I still have like the Farsi, like I guess it's like my mother tongue or first language to me in some ways.
Is it? Yeah. Yeah, I'd love that. It's just my dad never taught it to us, unfortunately, and I think it would be great to have that as an extra language. But alas, it's not to be. And I've still never been over there. I'd love to go over there at some point. But yeah, we'll see what happens in the future.
Great.
Luke, I wanted to ask you a little bit about kind of the lessons that you've learned since you started taking FPL seriously. I mean, I'm assuming you said you started taking it seriously in that 2017-2018 season. And I wonder if you have any like kind of hard and fast rules or dogma that you abide by, or if any of those rules kind of dictate the style of play, make you more aggressive or conservative as a manager.
Yeah, I think it was probably patience is much more of a rule that I follow rather than being too aggressive. I think whenever I've tried to be aggressive, it's always backfired. So I've kind of got that recency bias in my head, really, of and I've probably only tried it a few times. So when I have kind of gone against the grain, it's really backfired quite horribly. So I've kind of been much more patient and cautious with my choices, and I feel like I've done better when I've avoided hits and I kind of only take them when I really feel like it's necessary or my team really needs it, or if there's somebody like Ronaldo who's coming into the Prem, which thankfully worked out. But yeah, I think so I've got a more patient style, and I think from that 18-19 rank was probably before I started properly looking at Twitter. And that's not to say that Twitter isn't helpful, because sometimes it is. But I feel like there's so much stuff on there that you can quite easily overthink and get so information overload, which I don't particularly like. I know some people like having as much information as possible, which I like as well, but I think I prefer to get that information myself and maybe listen to one or two podcasts alongside that. And that was when I got my best rank. I don't remember being on Twitter too much, whereas the other 2 seasons I was on Twitter a lot more. And I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Like looking at that score, my best score was last season, but it was 97k. But my best rank was, like nearly 100 points less. It proves just how competitive and more difficult it's got, I think. over the last few years, which is bound to happen with more players. But yeah, I think that there's no hard and fast rules for me. I don't know about you two, but I kind of try and just go with. I try not to live by any kind of definite rules when I'm playing, and just go with kind of what I feel. I tend to always go with stats over gut feeling. I'd say that was probably my only thing.
And
that's really interesting. So I was going to say, Gabe, I'm going to move off the slide so we can kind of go to the cozy fireside chat feel. For any late arrivals, we'll put the screen back up for them to see your ranks, but let's make it more of a fireside chat from now.
I was wondering, like, just as a follow-up to this specific point, how you deal with those, because sometimes it's not either punt or no punt, right? Sometimes it's about, well, do I jump early on an asset that's actually producing and a lot of people will be jumping on them? Will I take a hit to get them early? And then that'll sort of, longer term plans. There's so much nuance in these decisions, right? Given that your style is a conservative style, or let's call it a patient style, like you said, what are some of the factors that would cause you to kind of steer away from that style and take some risks or be less patient?
I think if I feel like I'm chasing, if I feel like if my rank's quite low, high, I should say. Low or high? What would you say?
Bad.
Low, I guess. If it's bad, if my rank's bad, and I'm chasing, then I would say I would then be inclined to be more aggressive and do things a little bit differently. But again, last season I just had this mad week when I played my free hit, and I just decided to have fun and just picked like so many differentials, and it just completely backfired. I think it was on that blank game week. I picked like Rashford instead of Bruno and like stuff, like just ridiculous stuff that just didn't work, and just wasted my free hit and dropped by like, can't remember how many places now. So then I was like working my way back up to that 100k. So it's stuff like that where you think I've tried this to be a bit different, and it just hasn't worked at all. So I prefer to kind of wait and see on players. But I know what you mean, because quite often you think, well, I'm definitely going to put this player in, but by the time I am, everyone's going to have him in anyway. So you're constantly trying to think, oh, should I try and do things a bit differently? But I think it's a good rule of thumb to remember that even if your team is very template and you've got a lot of the same players as others, it's very, very rare that anybody's going to have the exact same starting 11. And if you have a good game week and all your players score, you're going to get a green arrow. It's not that you have to do things differently in order to progress up the ranks.
I think the trouble that I have, and we have a comment from Rubber Ducky who's joining us, patience is the key, and it really is. I mean, I've struggled with patience my whole life. My mother has told me so since I was a little child. But my problem is, so when to be patient and when not to be patient. And I think those are kind of these pivotal decisions that could see you, having a season like the one Nima is having versus not, right? But that's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, is that what you found, Nima? What's your kind of strategy been so far? I know you're close to top 1K, aren't you?
He is, and he's muted.
Oh, he's muted.
So the dog was barking at the Sainsbury's delivery man who knocked on the door. She's very territorial. I was like, they don't want to hear that on the podcast, just like dog yapping away. So that aside, I'd say I am generally very patient. So I've always called myself like consistently mediocre, because like for 5-6 years, I always come around the top 100k bar that one top 10k season. So I've always found myself quite patient, quite template. I'd rather have 2 free transfers. I'd rather roll than take a hit. This season is similar. So last week, I didn't make the move. So I had the same situation as you. I had Tony. I had exact money to go to Jimenez. I wanted to do it, but my mentality was kind of like, well, I can field 11. I've got playing bench. Like, is it going to be more valuable having 2 transfers and more flexibility to move money between my positions, say this week in Gameweek 6, than how many points am I realistically going to get like from Jimenez? And I just kind of made that calculated decision that, I'd seen enough stats from Tony and he'd done enough at 6.5 million that I thought, oh, it's fine. Like, I was like, I had a gut feeling, and I do that a lot. Now, it worked out this time. It looks like a masterstroke, but a lot of the time it means I hold on to failing assets and they keep dropping and dropping in price, and it doesn't perform for me. So I can be quite stubborn and hold on too long. I would say that's my downfall generally.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, isn't it? And I think recency bias is such a big factor in decision making in everything. In something like, to give an example of something completely different to FPL, quite often when we're talking about like having a baby and certain like things or decisions that we have to make, we always go, well, we know this person that had a baby and it didn't happen to them, or we know this person that had a baby and it did happen to them, and then we go, okay, then it will be all right. And actually, we discount the millions of other people that have had babies. We talk about the one person that we know that's had one recently, and I think it's similar in FPL. We go, well, because I've done it twice now. I got rid of Gundogan before he scored against Arsenal, and then I got rid of Tony before he hauled against Wolves. So I'm more likely now to hold a player that I perhaps wouldn't have held before, and then it might backfire, and then it might go to the other way. So I think it's always worth just sticking with a consistent plan in terms of fixtures, form, eye test, stats. If they're failing all of those, get them out. If they're passing all of those, get them in. And I feel like this week, what happened with me is I decided very early on that I wanted to get rid of Ivan Toney, and that was that. And I had the money in the bank to go to Jimenez, and I didn't really consider not getting rid of him. And I think, to be honest, everyone getting Bamford in also made me go, well, I've got to get a striker in. I've got to make a change here. And I didn't have Calvert-Lewin, and I wanted to keep Antonio. So, on paper, it kind of made sense, but there's always a risk going from one player to another in the same fixture, and it just flipped. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. But
it's interesting you saying the same fixture, by the way, because that was like, I was like you when the game week ended and I loaded my bus team. I looked at it, and I was like, Tony's going straight out. Fuck this guy. And I think I do that every week. Like this week, the game loaded, and I was like, fuck Jota, he's leaving. And then normally I wait a few days and I calm down, and then I'm like, you know what? I can kind of field an 11. They have decent fixtures. That's not that bad a fixture. And I try to then hedge my bets. So I also look at odds. And in my eyes, everyone was piling in on these Wolves defenders. And I thought, you know what? I don't like, how incredible would it be if I kept Tony? He was a differential EO wise, doesn't always pay off, and he wipes out those clean sheets of all those Wolves players. And like, so sometimes I like to play it that way. Like, I'll see so I write about transfer trends on Hub, and I look at who people are buying, who they're selling, and I try to kind of watch what the masses are doing. And if possible, I try to kind of hedge my bets against them if for some reason I have a gut feel, the data makes me think that I have like a chance of beating the masses. And a lot of the time it implodes in my face though. So don't get me wrong. It might have looked good this week, but it's not always like this. And I want to ask you, how many hits do you take like most seasons? So when you did come top 10K, do you like, obviously you might not remember, but do you know like how many hits you took then? I know you're a patient manager in general.
Yeah, I can't remember how many, but very few. Very few. Yeah, I rarely do it. I mean, I took a few more last season than I would normally. I mean, it was such a funny season last season, wasn't it, with COVID and everything like that, and there were just so many more factors to the usual season. And well, I mean, we're kind of seeing a little bit of that before the international decision recently got reversed. But I tend to avoid if I can, because I'm quite. I'm a maths guy, not advanced maths, but I very quickly go, well, a -4, if my player that I'm taking out for a -4 even gets 2 points, that's like the other player's got to get 6. And, then it starts to become this kind of, so I kind of look at combos instead of that. Like with the Ronaldo, bringing in Ronaldo for a -4 recently, it was like, well, if I don't bring him in, I'll probably bring in Calvert-Lewin. So then it's Bruno and Calvert-Lewin versus Jota and Ronaldo. who's going to score more, -4 over the next few weeks. I'm like, I think Jota and Ronaldo will do it. So then I'm like, right, okay, that makes the decision for me. So I'll have to really, really think about it if I'm taking hits. What about you guys?
Well, Gabriel, he takes them for fun.
I smash them. I take I eat hits for breakfast.
I love that though. I love that.
It's the thing is that if I have a player that I find is not providing for some reason value, if someone's not giving me value, it really irritates me, like to the core, and I need to scratch that itch, and the only way to do it is by taking a shot at -4 straight into the veins. Yeah, that's probably. I mean, that's my ranks would reflect that strategy, though, I'm afraid.
So last season I took I think -32 in hits, so it was like 8 hits, and I generally actually take them very early on in the season. So I took I think 6 of those in the first quarter. So when there's more managers playing, there's less dead teams, the transfer market is more active, and the prices are more volatile. That's normally when I'll take my hits to grow my team value, and then I try to be less hit heavy later on, unless it's a double game week when I tell myself like it's only a -2 and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I always convince myself. Interestingly, one thing we've noticed actually is some of the guests we've had, they've got incredible histories compared to any of us. And like we've got Hall of Fame #2, Tom Stevenson. I think he recently overtook Fabio Borges in the Live Scout Hall of Fame, and he was number 1. And yeah, so it's insane. We've got like Abdul FPL Salah, who has like 4 top 1K, 5 top 5Ks. We had Nick Triggerlips, who came like in 5 years, his worst rank was 1700, and the other 4 were top 1K, and one of them was 35th. And so we've had some insane guests come on. No pressure, Luke. Firstly, and and then secondly, every single one of them told us that like they generally in the years they did their best, they just don't take hits. Like Tom Stevenson, I think he plans like 4 or 5 a year max. We spoke to Bakar. He came 4th one year. Obviously, he's better known for his writing, but he did come 4th one year. And he said that year he even remembers burning a transfer. Now, I've never done that. What about you guys?
No, I've never burned a transfer. No, I'll always make one. I think, yeah. I mean, it'd be a great position to be in, wouldn't it? But yeah, I think I always make one.
I
think so.
I couldn't fathom myself in that position. Like looking at any team, like if it could be any team, you give me any team, I'd be like, well, you could do this, and maybe that's a problem I have. Is like overthinking and over managing. There's something to be said for nothing, I guess, for doing nothing sometimes.
No, I think so. I guess we wanted to find out a little bit as well about that season you came 9K. I don't know if Gabe, you wanted to dig into that a bit more, and I'll just put it back on the screen for a moment for anyone who's kind of come in now because we've got a few more live viewers.
Yes, I was wondering actually. It's a little bit of a psychological question. Does the rank weigh on you? The higher, when you're getting into those heights, do you feel pressure?
I don't think I feel pressure as such, but you're right in terms of, yeah. Once you get to that top 10K, you think you should be hitting it every season, and it's that classic thing of comparing yourself to people all the time, and there's always going to be people that are better than you, unless you're #1 Hall of Fame on the scout. It's like there's always going to be people that are doing better. There's always going to be people that are going to spend more time. There's always people that are going to pick a player that hauls and you don't. And I think that's where you can quite easily jump into a bit of a trap of disappointment if you're on Twitter all the time, because there's always going to be people that have had great game weeks when you haven't, and even if you've had a great game week, there's always going to be someone that's got more points, which immediately just depresses you a little bit. So I think that's the key, is kind of just trying to avoid comparing yourself as much as possible, and just remembering that this game is supposed to be fun.
As always, cheating say, right? Make fantasy fun.
Well, exactly, and you have got to remember that, like, as much as you possibly can. We're not spending thousands and thousands of pounds of our money in this. It's a free to play game, but there's a lot of there's just a lot of like respect and kudos to be gained, isn't there, from having a good like rank history. And yeah, I think getting that rank is like, well, I should aim for top 10k every year, and actually that is very difficult to do, I think, now.
I think it's changed a lot, because it used to be that top 10k was top 1% of a million players. Now we have 8 million players. There's more access to info. Even the official account is tweeting out tips. Their admin seems better this year. They even give push notifications of double game weeks, blank game weeks on the app. Like, it's so much easier for the masses to get info. I think it's harder than ever to do well. And I've personally always aimed for top 100k for that reason, because for me, top 100k, if you can get that every year, it shows consistency. I do believe there is a lot of fortune and luck needed to be getting top 10k these days every year. That is not so easy. And I think that's what made Tom Stevenson even more incredible, right? So the guy who was number one Hall of Fame in the live table, his last 3 ranks average was like 1k something. And I was like, so in the 3 years with the most players ever, you've still been getting these ranks and sub 1k ranks? Like, the rest of us are saying, oh, it's harder now, and he's still smashing it out the park.
Yeah, phenomenal.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I don't know,
it
like,
shows
how
there is a process.
Yeah, well, that's it, isn't it? And it's like, what? Like, you must just have such a knack for picking players that you think are gonna do well. And I envy that, because you think you've cracked it, and then, you know, someone, and then everyone starts blanking. So it's like golf.
You crack your head on the weekend, and then
exactly, yeah.
So on the flip side of the coin, Luke, we've talked about obviously when you're already leading the pack and the psychology around if that makes you feel pressure. What is it like if you're chasing rank? So let's say if you've got like a really bad start, you're maybe like in the 2 millions after like 10 weeks. How do you deal with that? And kind of what advice do you give to FPL managers who are looking to climb in that same situation? Maybe some people are going through that now.
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, it's not a nice position to be in. I think particularly if you've put in a lot of work and things just aren't going for you, then it's a tough position to be in. But I think you just got to stick to your process. I mean, you know, if it's your first season in FPL and you're 2 million after 10 game weeks, then fine, it's your first season, and you got to kind of work through that. But if you've had that good history and your process has worked up to that point, I don't think you should maybe sway too much from that, and just trust that you've got the kind of skills and technique needed to climb up the ranks. I mean, I think if I was at 2 million after 10 game weeks, well, first of all, I would hope that I would have wildcarded by that point. If I hadn't, I would make sure I wildcarded, because I think there's nothing like giving yourself a fresh start and coming at it with a fresh team. And I'd maybe start to do things slightly differently, just in terms of maybe just picking 1 or 2 players that maybe 3 players that are kind of under 5% owned or under 10% owned, that if they haul, it will really boost your rank. You know, like having Salah in this week for people probably did. You know, I think he's like 7% owned still, crazily. And so I think you'd have to maybe start thinking about that. But as I said before, as long as your players are returning, you are going to get green arrows. So it may even be worth just at first going quite template, because you've probably not gone that template if you're at 2 million rank, and just getting steady greens to start off with. But patience would still be a big factor there, I think, and not kind of panicking. So I think the minute you start panicking, trying to do things too differently, it doesn't work out.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think I'll have to take some notes later and remember to follow those. When you get swept in the wave of a game week, sometimes it's like all of this planning just goes out the window. Like
100%
rage, and it's that's why I said this is what makes it such an interesting game, right? We learn so much about ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you look at players like FPL General and Late Riser in the last couple of seasons. They've had really, really like tough ranks, you know, and they're top players. You know, they do FPL. You know, he does it for a living, and so it proves it can just happen sometimes where just nothing nothing goes right for you. So you just gotta keep smiling and keep trying to put those players in.
Keep shining, keep smiling,
Yeah.
keep shining.
That's it. Yeah. Any more cliches? Keep
That's
smiling,
right.
keep having fun.
That's right. Tell us a little bit about your process, and like you mentioned, you did mention as far as like stats and tables and stuff like that. But do you use like, for example, a planner to navigate your game weeks, or and also I was wondering, do you have the luxury of watching a lot of games?
Yeah, I've tried a few different approaches actually. I mean, last season I picked my team purely based on points per 90 minutes metric, and did very well at first, and then and then it wasn't working as much. And what it meant was I was holding on to players a lot longer than perhaps I would have done normally, because what I'd do is I'd kind of look, since I had them, I'd be like, are they hitting their points target each game week, and if they were still kind of hitting the target but they'd blanked like 3 in a row or something, I'd still hold them because they were hitting the target. It's quite, I mean, I won't go into it too much because it was like quite a long process of picking and like updating this I had this table each week that I'd update. So say like Bruno's target was 8 points per game week because that's what he'd got previously. So if he got 2, then he'd be on -6, but if he got 10 the next week, then he'd be on like +2 or whatever. So I'd look at this table at the end and be like, okay, so Bruno's on +5. He's blanked a few times, but he's still on +5. So I'll keep him for now. And I'd work it that way. And it was working to a degree, but it wasn't much fun. It was very, very methodical and just purely looking at numbers. So I didn't enjoy that approach as much as but it was always just trying to be different and going, oh, maybe I've cracked FPL here. But yeah, no, I'm very much stats. I look at a lot of stats, and I look at teams' defensive stats, so teams to target depending on how they're doing defensively, and I watch as many games as I can. I mean, at the moment, I'm quite lucky that I get to watch most of the live games. And obviously, highlights, match of the day every week, and I write notes on eye test and then see if my eye test is backed up with stats. So that's kind of how I approach it. I don't use a planner. I have done in the past, but I tend to just kind of either type it out or write it down old-fashioned way. Kind of, this is my plan game week 5. This is my plan game week 6. But yeah, Ben Krellin's planner is amazing, but it was just too much for my laptop to take, so I just couldn't work. It was too slow.
Should we tell the viewers at this stage you're on an iPad?
I'm on an iPad. Yeah. I need to get a proper laptop. I just use it for writing normally, but technology wise, it tends to be a bit slow. So yeah, I kind of work with the old fashioned way of either typing or writing up notes and stats. And I like to choose players based on my own research rather than kind of listening to others and then just following them. I like to do my own, because I think it's more exciting and enjoyable when you've picked a player based on your own research. I think.
I agree with you, and it's that whole process of diving so deep into that player and what that player does. I get a lot of satisfaction out of that.
Me too.
And when I have a bad game week, I always try to reshift my focus back to that satisfaction that I had when I was studying everything and how much I learned along the way. And I was like, it might not have panned out. I mean, the FPL thing is almost an aside at that point, but it's that exploration that's really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the one that I always remember was that 9K season. I was thinking, I don't remember anything from that season, but that 9K season, I did a real deep dive into the stats. There was a game week where Man City had a double, and one of them was, I think they were playing Arsenal, and then somebody else, can't remember who. And I did a real deep dive into the stats, and I thought, well, they could score against Arsenal. And then I was looking at stats of the players, and I think there was a choice to take a -4 for Aguero, or to make a different decision and captain someone else. I took the -4 for Aguero, triple captained him, and he'd scored a hat trick. And that was the time I was like, yes, I knew that was coming. I knew it was a possibility. And when that happened, it's when you get stuff like that right, it's such a joy. Like owning Antonio for those 4 goals against Norwich a couple of seasons ago as well was just like,
wow, that was the best.
Just so
that was the
so
best.
good. It was so good. What, did you have him as well? I didn't captain him. No.
Yeah. Oh,
did you?
Man,
oh, well, there you go. I mean, even better.
That was my 1K season. I finished 1,100 solely
Brilliant.
thanks to Antonio.
Yeah, that's it. And it's stuff like that.
I have a lot of love for him.
That's why we play. That's why we play it. 'Cause it's stuff like that where you're like, you just see a player, and other people have seen it as well. Of course, it's not just you, but you just see a player and you think, I've got a feeling they're gonna smash it, and then suddenly they do. It's brilliant.
I'm the guy that captained Antonio a couple of weeks ago for the negative points. So.
Oh no, mate!
that's me.
What, for the sending off? I mean, that's just bad luck.
Yep.
That is so unlucky. And then you wildcard.
So unlucky.
After, right? And then I rage wildcarded.
Did you?
I love it. It was a pure therapy right there.
I've got to keep up to date with your team. I'm not sure if I follow you or not, but I'm going to follow you now because your style of play sounds brilliant. Here we are. I just gave you. There we go.
You know what?
I think it's brilliant. It's brilliant for the spectators.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I love it.
I was going to say, if there's one thing to follow Gabe for beyond his FPL is whenever we do the show and he does the matchups show with the captain of the ship, Mariner, on the end of the week, and his pronunciation of these South American players' names. We get people in the live chat tipping money on Super Chat. Like, can you please say Miguel Almiron again? Can you say Regulon? Roll a few tongues for us. Give Luke some of your...
Well, I think the most, one of the most popular ones is Sergio Reguilon.
Nice. Love that.
Miguel Almiron is a very popular one as well.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that is good. That's good on the ears.
And me, on the other hand, I managed to butcher the pronunciation of a 3-letter name. Eze, I was calling him like Easy E. I was on a stream like Easy this and someone in the live chat was like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?"
Easy E, yeah.
The good news is a couple of seasons back when we were talking about our Iranian friend Ali Reza Jahanbashk, no one else knew how to say it. None of the commentators in the country did.
That's a very good pronunciation.
That was good times. So just before we go on to kind of, I guess, your current game week, your plans for game week 6, one final question I wanted to ask you about your process in this kind of final part of the interview segment was, do you use any kind of optimization tools or like software, or is it entirely eye test? Like, I know you've said you already use stats over eye test, but I'm keen to know, I guess, what stats. So for me, like shots in the box, big chances.
I see, yeah.
And then those are the things I look at. I use all of Fix, Hub, and Scout for different things. What are your thoughts there? So like, what do you use? Which tools you use? What's your go-to stat?
Yeah, I'm same as you really. I look at attacking stats. The Opta stats on Hub this year have been great. It's just the ease of the use. The way you can use it is really easy. And yeah, I look at very similar shots on target, shots in the box, big chances, XG. And then obviously, chances created as well. And normally, kind of for defenders, I look more at chances created rather than shots. But yeah, those are kind of my favorite ones. And then I like looking at team stats as well in terms of teams to target, and the fixture tickers are useful as well. Although sometimes it's really tempting to put players in who have got great fixtures but just haven't got the form. Which I've kind of done with Jimenez and Wolves, but I suppose they kind of did have the form, didn't they? But it's the temptation, I think, is always to put players in that have got the fixtures and haven't necessarily passed the eye test. The eye test is really important as well, but the stats have got to back it up for me, I think.
That's really interesting. Like I think in that same season where I captained Antonio for the 4 goals and it was my best season, as I said, I actually brought in Aguero like before anyone, and I captained him and he got 20 points. And the following week, everyone else brought him in and he got 20 points again. and I actually captained him for both. And then everyone was still bringing him in, and then I sold him for Aubameyang and captained him for a brace when Aguero blanked, and it was just
Nice.
like I just felt like I was successively like I was very fortunate. I was kind of looking at the stats. The stats said this guy's going to explode, but they haven't yet. The eye test looked good. They looked like they were confident. They were just missing a bit of like finishing edge, and I happened to get in early. Other years, I did dumb shit like use my bias, like sell Salah in his blank for Oba, and well, Oba got malaria. I don't know. Like, is that unlucky or stupidity? I don't know. I'll let you decide. Yeah, my bias has fucked me many times. Honestly. On that note, let's look at your current season. So, I think you started quite well, Luke. You're saying it's 633k. I say it's well because I think in the Twitter bubble, a lot of people have had a good start, and it's almost like I saw someone 2 weeks ago saying, "Oh, if you've had a bad season and you're worse than top 500k, like don't worry." And I was like, "What do you mean bad season?" I know incredible managers who've been like 1.4 million, 2 million by game week 3, 4, 5, and they've managed to come top 10k by the end. Like this season, especially, the points are so narrow. The difference between, say, top 500k and top 10k is maybe 35 points. You're not that far off. So it is a great start to the season. So, I wanted to address that. 663k is great, regardless of what Twitter might tell us. Your game week ranks obviously 2.9 million. So it sounds like you had a bit of a harder week. You got 60 points. So yeah, talk us through about, I guess, your game week and how do you feel the opening weeks have gone for you?
Yeah, it's gone okay. I mean, I've just literally just looked then. So 349 divided by 5, I've got 69.8 points per game week so far, which is normally enough to like win the whole game. So it's not a it's really not too much of a problem. I mean, it's disappointing when you have weeks like this one. I think it's basically been like one or two decisions that I've got wrong so far. That have meant that I'm not a lot higher than I would be. And like you say, there's a very short, small gap between where I'm at the moment and like top 10k. So I'm not too concerned. And I think if you'd have offered me this rank at the start of the season, I would have probably said yes. I'd have
I would have bitten your arm off for it, mate. I was like 1.8 million or something at this point last year.
That's it. I think if you're top 500k by Christmas, you've got a really good chance of pushing on. So I'm more than happy with where I'm at. And I think you're right. I think it's the Twitter bubble at the moment. There's quite a lot of people doing very well. So you kind of you're comparing yourself to them and thinking, I'm a bit disappointed. I'm not doing that well. But I'm okay at kind of at the end of a game week, sticking with the positives. And it's just a couple of decisions. Like I say, if I'd have kept Tony this week, I'd have got 70 points. Nice green arrow. If I'd have got Livramento off the bench, an extra 5 points, probably would have ended up with a small green arrow. As it was a small red, and stuff like getting rid of Gundogan before his points against Arsenal, and not having Ben Rama at the start of the season, not owning Greenwood at the start of the season. Just a few little decisions like that have backfired, but the rest of the team are doing okay, and I'm quite happy with how it's up for the next few. So a little bit disappointed this week, but like I say, it's basically a grey. I've gone down by about 10,000 places, so I'm all right with that at this stage.
I just wanted to say, Luke, we've got Andy Martin at FPL Tactician. He's an evil, evil man. He said anything above 350 points at this stage is good. For any podcast listeners, you're on obviously 349. Gabe, do you want to do the honors of reading out, I guess, Luke's team for this game week, just for any podcast listeners who can't see the picture?
Yeah, so here's the 60-point team for this game week for Luke. Sanchez in goal, Veltman, Shaw, and Sofal across the back line. Midfield 5 of Brownhill, Rafinha, Salah, Jota, and Benrahma. And Jimenez and Ronaldo up top. He's got Steele, Antonio, Trent, and Livramento on the bench.
Can't fault the pronunciations, right?
There you go. I threw a little in there for you, Nima. So you were saying that how you do feel like your team is well set up for the upcoming game week. So tell us a little bit about your plans. So What are your plans looking towards game week 6, Luke?
I think I'm probably going to roll the transfer this week. I'm well set up, and a lot of them have got pretty good fixtures. And because Chelsea play City, I think I'm better off having 2 transfers going into game week 7. I mean, there's always a potential to wildcard, of course. I certainly don't need to do it this week. Game week 7, game week 8 was what I was targeting initially, but I don't really like to plan a wild card too far ahead, just because I think if you can save it and your team is doing okay, then I don't really feel the need to. So I'll hold off if I can, and I just go with that rule of the classic rule of if I'd make more than 4 changes to my team, then I'd wild card. But at the moment, I wouldn't. I mean, I've been really disappointed, like a lot of people with Jota. I think he's been so unlucky, and just not finishing his chances, which is really disappointing in the last 2 game weeks. So I'm hoping maybe he gets some points against Brentford, but hearing Firmino might be back is slightly worrying. But I think even if he is, I think I'll still probably hold him. So I've got those 2 frees for game week 7.
So that's
on that
interesting.
note, Luke,
Go ahead,
I
Nima.
was going to say, just because you were talking about the wild card, that's a really interesting topic. I think everyone wants to know about this. So everyone had talked about game week 7 because of the Chelsea swing, but I think Ronaldo plays Everton that game at home, so it's not looking as obvious as it was before. Southampton just kept the clean sheet against City, obviously, and only allowed 1 shot on target. Do you think that, are you still going to stick to that plan? Like, do you think a game week 7 wildcard works, or like, is it better actually saving it maybe for after the international break going into game week 8? Or if you can get the Chelsea assets without a wildcard, do we even hold on longer? Like, is there a case for maybe game week 14, 15 when other fixture swings happen? I don't know if I know you don't like to plan that far ahead for wildcard, but what are your thoughts there on wildcard?
Yeah, I think again, it depends what your team's looking like. So I think if you look at your team and you definitely make over 4 or 5 changes, then wild card. If you wouldn't, then hold off. I mean, you can always do a little mini wild card. The 3. If you've got 2 frees, maybe make 3 transfers for a -4 if it's looking worth it, and then you can that can solve a lot of problems. I just think having it in your back pocket is always such a good asset to have. But again, it depends how you're doing, doesn't it? And I just look at my team and I think, well, how many changes would I make? And at this stage, I don't know if I'd make any right now, but particularly as Chelsea play City next.
Right.
And then after that, like you say, Ronaldo plays Everton, Lukaku plays Southampton. Suddenly, those 2 fixtures aren't looking as different as they were before. Like, I think Lukaku was the standout option before, and now perhaps he's not as much of a standout. I just feel like with Chelsea, Lukaku's obviously going to score goals, but I feel like their goals can come from other areas, and they can to a degree with United. But Ronaldo is going to be the main man, and you can see already, he's obviously we've only got data for 2 matches, but 6.5 shots a game. That's what he's been getting that's what he's been doing for the last 10 years of his career, or however long. Maybe not 10 years. Somebody's going to jump on the comments and go, actually 9 years ago he had 4 shots a game. But do you know what I mean? He's been
There's always one.
There's always one. Of course there is, particularly on Twitter. But there's consistently, he's been doing that consistently for so long. That's what he'll continue to do. So I don't think you can really go wrong with either of them, to be honest. But I think that's going to be such a tough decision in game week 7. My original plan was Ronaldo to Lukaku game week 7, maybe shorter Rudiger or James game week, maybe even Alonso now game week 7 as well. But the more I see Ronaldo, the more I think he could quite easily get 2 or 3 against an Everton team that just lost 3-0 to Villa. What do you think?
I was actually going to question, I guess, that the idea that I think there are more goal scorers at United than there are at Chelsea. So I feel like at Chelsea, Lukaku actually stands a chance to be more talismanic in terms of goal scoring. than Ronaldo, and I think Ronaldo could and has in previous teams disappeared in certain games, and when he disappears, I mean he doesn't do anything else. So while Lukaku, I think, could remain more, just more of a focal point in the tip of that attack. I don't know what
That's
your
really
thoughts are.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, possibly. I think, and I'm mainly, I guess, because we've got such few games in the Premier League to go on so far. I'm mainly kind of going from what I've just seen, and he certainly wasn't as much of a threat against Spurs as Ronaldo was against West Ham, and yeah, I think I'm kind of going off the fact that Chelsea had 3 different goal scorers.
Well, that's the one thing Chelsea does do is they have these guys that can head the ball like crazy, right?
Yeah, that's
so
it.
That element.
I do think you're right, though. On paper, you look at United's team, and there does look to be more goal scorers than in Chelsea's. But it's just from what I've seen so far, they're constantly looking for Ronaldo. I mean, you look at the effect it's had on Greenwood so far. I think he's maybe had 1 or 2 shots, whereas before Ronaldo came, he was right up there. And Bruno's looking for him at every available opportunity. Pogba's looking for him. It just seems like he's massively going to be the focal point. But you're probably right. I think Lukaku is going to be that for Chelsea as well. I just feel like he hasn't quite. He's been playing very well, but he hasn't quite hit the. Maybe he has. I don't know. He still scored 2, didn't he, against Villa?
If I were to try to put my finger on kind of like the idea, I think you're getting at this idea that, and I think it's probably true, but I'd have to check the passing heat maps. At Chelsea, the passes come from further away, so Lukaku seems a little bit, I guess, more isolated. It seems like there's a team kind of behind him. Whereas with Ronaldo, it's more shorter passes. So Ronaldo seems maybe more involved in the actual gameplay. Again, that's kind of just narrative in my head right now. I'd have to check the passing heat maps to verify that, but I could see that playing out.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I think for me, it was always like an easy choice to do kind of Ronaldo to Lukaku in Game Week 7 originally. Now I don't think I would do that move until at least Game Week 8. I think people who may be wildcard in Game Week 8, there is a case to maybe sell Salah as one of the 2 free transfers in Game Week 7 when he plays City, as big a risk as it is, and actually have both Ronaldo and Lukaku in that week, and then wildcard in Game Week 8 to then maybe stick with Lukaku and get Salah back. We'll talk about the freemium option shortly, but it's not for me. I don't like the way it kind of destroys the rest of the balance in my squad personally. Other people obviously have done it to good effect. I think I'm a fixtures man, Luke. So when I see those fixtures for Lukaku from kind of Game Week 7, 8 to 15, it's really hard for me to not jump on that. But I think equally, I'm more and more tempted to maybe wait, because if Ronaldo just keeps scoring every game, it's not going to be so easy for me to just sell him. Yeah, like, so that's one thing that is worrying me a bit. And I was hoping to hold on to my wild card, but if I start to think I want both Ronaldo, Lukaku, and Salah, if that is where I'm leaning by Game Week 8, I may just have to wild card to try and fit them all in. I don't know how that's going to pan out. One thing I will say is Ronaldo's goals, they've all kind of been, I don't know, like, I almost feel like all the goalkeepers and defenders seem in awe of him, and they're like spilling the ball and fucking up, and it just seems a bit mad. I'll be honest with you. I don't know how long he's going to face people like Woodman and these guys like with these schoolboy errors. So there is also that worries me a bit. Lukaku, I think he looked great. I'm shocked he got no points last game. In a way, I think that masks how he played. The other thing about Lukaku is we've got the likes of kind of Antonio, Bamford, these guys. They're getting their points, and actually, you got even Vardy and the likes. They're all scoring. Ings is scoring. In the top 5 forwards for points, people only talk about Antonio and none of the other 4 if you look at them. So is it that actually these other forwards are scoring the same as a Lukaku and Ronaldo? And do we need both? It's like everyone's like, Lukaku scored. Well, it was 6 points. Can't I get my 6 points from a cheaper striker? So now I'm starting to think maybe 2 of them isn't enough. And that week where they both hauled and both got a brace, I think that will be few and far between. So that's a few things in my thinking. But just on that note then about Antonio, Gabe, because obviously Lucas kept Antonio and benched him. I've done the same. We're both fellow Norwich owners when he got the 4 goals, so I can see why he benched him. But 1.5 million people sold him. What are your thoughts there? You sold him on Wildcard, didn't you?
Yes, I did. So yeah, Pete here in the live chat says, "Can't wait for Antonio this game week after losing 1.5 million owners." And, I mean, Pete has reason to be excited, I think, and players like managers like myself are trusting our other assets to cover. I mean, that's the name of the game, right? If you don't go for one and you have some other, then you're hoping that it was a criticism or a fear of mine when I let go of Antonio, and I just told myself that you can't have them all, and you're going to have players that are going to perform well in certain game weeks, and you have to trust that the players you selected in combination will perform just as well or better. I think that's simple, really.
I've seen this is the funniest part of the transfer trends, Luke. So when the game week loaded, there were still people mass selling Antonio because he had a red flag, even though he wasn't bad. And then the next day they removed the flag, and now he's like the most transferred in player. Honestly, I just love, like, I promise you, like, I just love watching what people do in the market. It's fucking fascinating. It's like all it takes is a little flag, and they just fucking lose their shit. But so just on that note, my early captaincy thoughts are obviously like Ronaldo because he's at home. Salah, although it's away at Brentford, it's he's in insane form. I wouldn't be shocked if anyone went with him if it's a good choice. But is there a case then for Antonio, Luke? Like, would you consider Antonio, or is he at the bottom of your list of those 3?
No, I think he's right at the top. I mean, I think really, if you're looking at, if you want a bigger set of data and you want, slightly bigger than Ronaldo, and you kind of look at the form of Leeds versus Villa, then Antonio's a better captain pick this week over Ronaldo. I mean, even with missing the game last week, so playing a game less than most other players, he's third for shots in the box, still first for big chances, third for XG, joint second for big chances created, and he's fourth for XA as well. So you've got goal and assist potential against Leeds, who are 19th for XGC, 19th for shots conceded, 20th for shots in the box conceded, 20th for shots on target conceded, and 47% of their chances are conceded in the centre of the pitch, and Antonio plays down the middle. Whereas Villa, I mean, like, really, on paper, he should be getting 2 or 3 goals there. That's just like, but again, it's a very small data set to work from. And you look at what's just happened with Wolves against Brentford. Wolves look solid at the back, posting good stats. I thought easy clean sheet. I thought Tony would do nothing, and look what happened. So it's that, and look what happened. Look what's happened with Southampton in the last few games. Suddenly they've learned how to defend. Yeah. So it is a very small data set to be working on. But Antonio just passes everything that we're talking about, and it's a great fixture. But I'll still captain Ronaldo.
I'm gonna be captaining Ronaldo, but ask Gabriel how it felt that week when he captained Antonio instead of Ronaldo. Would you do it this week again, or I guess you don't have him?
If I had him, I would captain Antonio this week.
You sold him to avoid this time, didn't you?
It's pretty much. It's like, I don't want these decisions to not go well for me, but I would 100% captain Antonio if I had him, because I know he's going to be top of Mariner's metric as well. So.
Yeah, on that note, Luke, so Mariner, the captain of our ship, he had a captaincy metric last year that had an 80% hit rate. And a lot of us, well, my captains did not hit 80%. It was one of my worst seasons for captaincy.
Yeah,
some people are now just following his metric all season, I guess, because they have that faith in it. I think for me, one thing I will say is I'm looking at home players. Any decision I'm struggling on this season, whether it's which defender to play between my 4.5s, who to captain, I'm going to go for the home player. Like, I've seen enough from that limited sample size of what it's like. I've been to a couple of games myself. Just seeing the home crowds, like, that's enough for me. Like, I'm not captaining away players if I've got a premium at home. Like, that's me, though. That's my style. What about the freemium topic?
Yeah, I think it's a tricky one, isn't it? I think it is a viable viable way to go, having all three. But it's not for me at the moment. I just feel like you're kind of relying a lot on that third premium to perform each week. And if one of them doesn't, you're then relying on other players that are perhaps shoehorned in a little bit. But, having said that, I have seen some really good teams with all three of them in. They're always 4-4-2. So you're missing out. And like you were saying earlier, Nima, about is a player like Sam Maximan's not going to score every week, but is a player like him, Calvert-Lewin, Bamford, Jimenez, Antonio, you're missing out on all these mid-price strikers that could potentially get you the 6 points that Ronaldo only got this week. So I think you can do it without all three, but I completely get the temptation. It's going to be a really tricky decision, especially on Wildcard.
So Gabe's got the three of them, and he made a really solid point that if you go freemium, it doesn't mean you have to stick with it. Like, it can just be for a few weeks.
And I think what I was getting at is these past couple of weeks, right? It's the budget enabling mids that have been hitting. So not this week, of course, because I wildcarded, but prior to my wildcard, where the Damari Grays of the world, right, are hitting. I mean, Sar banged this week. And we see the 7.5, the mid-price ones that aren't doing so well. So in times of the season when this is kind of the dynamic, if the budget ones are hitting, then it's a good time to maybe try a premium. The problem with that is that can change at any moment, right? It was like one of your premiums stops hitting, and then you have to kind of readjust, or you need a lot of surgery to then recover from that, which is kind of the peril of trapping yourself into three premiums. But I'm with three premiums now, and I'll probably remain that way until about game week 8 or 9, which when I'll sell one of them probably, and then diversify.
I guess on that note, you've already wildcarded, so I guess there was like 800,000 managers I think wildcarded last week.
Yeah, and that's another thing. I think the threemium is good as part of a broader strategy. Like Nino was saying, not just as a thing in itself. So either you're going to wildcard out of it, or you have some transfer plans to get out of it at some point.
Yeah, I think sorry, go on, mate.
No. I was going to move on to the next talking point, but if you had one last thought here, please.
Oh yeah, no. So I guess just to finish that off, I think if all three of them had amazing fixtures, then I think it would be a lot tougher decision for me. But the fact that if you look at the fixtures, you can quite easily jump on and off the ones that have the best. So therefore, it makes it much easier to just stick with two for me and go. But obviously, a player like Lukaku, Ronaldo, Salah can always perform against the higher teams, but they are less likely to against a tough defense. Lukaku against City is less likely to score than Ronaldo is against Villa. And you've got Antonio there, who's got a brilliant fixture against Leeds. And you've got, somebody like Bamford, who's got an okay fixture against West Ham, or you've got Jimenez, who's got a decent fixture against Southampton. If you're relying on Ronaldo, if you're relying on just Ronaldo and Lukaku up top, I think you're more likely to get points with, Antonio, Ronaldo, and another this week because of that tough fixture. But it's going on probabilities, isn't it? And whether you favour fixtures over kind of just the best players.
So I wanted to ask you, a lot of people are thinking about wildcarding in the next, certainly game week 7 was one of the game weeks that was identified by many managers, at least on Twitter. And I wanted to get your thoughts of if somebody is going to wildcard in game week 7 and they're looking for punt. What's a 1 game week punt for game week 6 for managers?
Yeah, so I had a little look at this before we started recording. So obviously we fairly well known, I guess, that the worst defences in the league at the moment are Newcastle, Leeds, and Norwich. So I've looked at, I think Leeds obviously playing West Ham, and obviously Antonio would be my pick there, but he's not too much of a differential. So I had a look at Everton and Watford players. So that's Watford have got Newcastle at home, and Newcastle have conceded 43% of their chances down the right side. So I looked at Dennis. It wasn't a massive differential, but he's 11.4% owned, and he operates on the left. My pick for that would be Salah. Still, I think he's still 7.3% owned. So, is that a differential? Are we saying under 10% or under 5%?
I think so.
Yeah, I think under 10 is good.
Yeah, so Salah would be my pick really for that game, and I think under 10 is still great for him, and he'd probably be my pick if I was just making a punt before a wild card. And Everton wise, I looked at either Townsend or Decore. I mean, Townsend's 1.8% owned, and Decore's Andy's Decore baby. Andy's put he's 3.1% owned. I mean, Townsend doesn't offer a lot of goal threat, but he has created 10 chances so far, and 2 of those big chances, and Norwich concede most chances down their left. So he could be a little punt as well.
No, I like that. That's a very timely moment for me to tell you. As I said, when the game loaded and I saw Jota miss from 3 yards, I wanted to rage him out. We've heard Firmino's back in team training. The midweek game comes too soon. If I saw Jota play, say, like a lot of minutes midweek in the League Cup, and I keep hearing murmurs from Klopp that Firmino's ready, he's going to play against Brentford, it may be enough because I've got 2 free transfers, so I'm looking to use one and roll another. It may be enough for me to get rid of Jota for Salah this week. It is a bit of points chasing, but the reality is I like his next 6 fixtures. In the shorter term, his next 2 at least, with Newcastle being one of them. If I am going to wildcard as well around Gameweek 7 or 8, which I've still not decided yet, I think Salah is someone I would like against Newcastle. So I agree with that. You mentioned Decore. We really like him here. Gray, he had like 3 goals from 3 shots, so I won't go more into him. Obviously, with Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin out, maybe he's got a bit more of a attacking threat because he'll have to do more. But some players I want to ask about are sort of kind of Conor Gallagher. I don't think his next 3 look great. I think he's better for someone wildcarding later. Some people are moving in early on him. The other option is Rafinha, who a lot of people moved from Ben Rama to him, and I've got to wait and find out if he's injured or not. If he wasn't injured, how would you rank those replacements for Jota? For me personally, say like between Salah, Gallagher, Decore, Gray, Rafinha. What are your thoughts about those? Like, how would you rank them?
I think Rafinha would be my first choice. I like to look at players that have been consistently doing it before this season as well. And I think the other players you've mentioned haven't got that season behind them necessarily of like consistent returns. And I think Rafinha's not quite hit the heights yet of last season, but he's looked good. And he is such an important player for Leeds, and I think they will start to click a little bit more than they have done, and they've got great fixtures. So he'd probably be first choice, and then Salah would definitely be second. I mean, he's just such a talisman for Watford, isn't he? I think if they score, he's one of those players where you've got the notifications on your phone, you just know when it buzzes up Watford won, you think Salah's going to be involved. He's bound to be involved. Whereas we haven't got that as much with Jota because of Salah and Mane and a few of those other players. So I think having that like talisman effect is always really, really fun to have when you own a player like Salah, because if they score, he's probably going to be involved.
Don't get me wrong. Like I might still keep it, but I'm going to wait and see like how things pan out with his minutes and Firmino and what he looks like. So something that I just wanted to show you actually. So before we continue on the final 2 questions from here, we're then going to go to Twitter. I thought this would be a great time to talk about what happens when a notification comes in and a player you don't own and his Twitter owned scores. So we had Nick Triggerlips on the show recently last week, and he came and co-hosted with Gabe. He was the guy I told you that had the 5 seasons where his worst rank was 1700 and the other 4 were top 1k, including a 35 finish. I'm going to show the video of what happened while we were live on air with Hibbo last Monday. And people in the live chat told us that Gray had scored for Everton. And Luke, if you've not seen this clip, like it's honestly, it's incredible drama. So let me just, let me get that on for you 1 second. I actually don't know what to say. It's so good. It is so good. Let's get this on. I'm going to put the slide on.
Is this the guy that hates people making money out of FPL?
It is.
Yeah.
We had a great chat. Yeah, we had a great chat. Here, have a
He's
look
funny.
at this. Have a look at this. That's
Can't believe-
devastating.
Make some pulp.
LiveFPL.net is going to crash. Let's have a look. Oh, wow. The average and the safety score have gone way up.
Having
not even
DCL out and then having that prick Gray score, it's just like it's ruined my fucking day, though. You know, you get
It's ruined my day too, to be fair.
all 10 midfielders blank, don't they? And you just know that fucking Gray's going to come along and fuck up your game week.
On a Monday night.
Except all the pricks on Twitter who've all got him. That's the only people you were. 99% of people posting on Twitter tonight will have him.
All the
rest will have turned off.
Or Gameweek. Oh god, yeah. So that was incredible, Luke. So Nick is now one of the haulers. He's one of us, friends of the show. For anyone who'd not seen that video before, I hope you enjoyed it. I'd like to take this moment to say we actually peaked at nearly 50 live views, so that was great. It's going well. Thank you, guys. If you are watching and you've just tuned in recently, please do hit like and subscribe if you're not a subscriber already. Really appreciate the support. It will help us, obviously, with the algorithm. So please do hit like if you're enjoying it. We're going to get to the live Q&A very shortly, so you'll have your chance to ask Luke and the rest of us your questions. But please show us some support and some love. And we're just going to finish 2 final questions as part of the Gameweek 6 trending topics, and then we're going to kind of open up to the floor as well. So on that note, I'm just trying to think what was next. I think it was about Wolves game.
Yeah, so we were just wondering about Wolves and how do we evaluate them? Like, do we judge them now? Do we let these fixtures unfold and then judge the kind of block of 8 game weeks? What do we do with Wolves? Those of us that brought Traore instead of Sarr, for example.
Yeah, I went with Sarr. I played my wildcard on Fan Team a few weeks ago, and I chose Sarr over Traore, which I'm very, very glad about now after that haul. And as a Jimenez owner, it was such a frustrating watch that game against Brentford. I thought Wolves were so bad in terms of their end product. I mean, Traore just cannot cross and cannot finish, and I just can't see it changing. I think but then if I had him, I would keep him. I think it's one of those players, and he's posting those stats. You think, well, surely eventually a goal's going to go in.
It's the team kind of that. There's a point where like a miss or a close miss just destroys the team. I feel like Traore's crossbar, that was the nail in the coffin for Wolves, because once they saw that didn't go in, it's like they didn't believe anything would go in at that point.
Yes.
But what happens if that goes in? I think it's a very different game. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, maybe. It feels similar to Brighton last season when they had those games where they were posting such good numbers and they just couldn't finish. And then suddenly, I think they had that game week where they won 3 or 4-0 and Trossard finally scored, and it was like we knew that was coming. So, but then the stats against Brentford weren't anywhere near as good as the ones beforehand. But then Brentford have been really solid at the back. I don't know. I think they're a bit of a wait and see for me. What do you think, Nima?
It's a tough one because I am looking at kind of moving Ayling on this week, depending on the injury. So if I do keep Jota, it will be Ayling I'm moving on. And I have a choice here, whether do I go for like a Semedo or Michail, or do I just go straight to Rudiger and bench him against City and like get one step ahead towards that Chelsea assets and have 2 free transfers in game week 7, already have Rudiger, try to basically avoid the wild card. So I'm leaning towards that. I have 0 million in the bank for that move. So if Ayling drops or Rudiger rises, which they're both potentially going to do, I will be priced out. But that is something I'm looking at, and I think I'm going to avoid Wolves for now. I actually have them in other formats. I think that's the beauty, Luke, you mentioned Fan Team of playing these other games is it's my first season kind of playing Sky. I have 12 entries in Fan Team compared to 1 last year. So like I kind of own the other players in other formats, and I think to myself, I'm not going to just try to own them all in FPL. I can't. And if they do well, I probably own them in one of my many teams somewhere. So I'll be happy either way. Fuck it. Like, and that helps me in my patient approach.
The remedy to FOMO. That's the remedy to FOMO, is just play multiple
exactly.
formats. You're not going to miss out
That's
on
why I
anything
didn't get
at all.
Jimenez last week. Honestly, that's why I didn't get Jimenez in the end.
I don't know how you keep up with 12 teams on fan team. That's unreal. I've only got the one. But yeah, no, definitely get Rudiger. I'd play him against City as well. I wouldn't bench him, but I could
bench Livramento against Wolves for Rudiger.
I would do that.
Fair,
Rudiger's got that goal threat as well, hasn't he? I mean, as we saw. So yeah, I think that's a much more sensible
if I had the Wolves players though, just for any listeners who do have them, some people in the live chat were asking about Traore and should they sell him now? I think if you've already brought him in for these fixtures, you've got to see it through, and that's kind of why I kept Tony, right? So my view is I have players for like a period of, I'd say, 4 to 6 weeks minimum, 4 on the minimum, and that's why with Jota, even though I want to rage sell him, my view is, well, I've had him for 2. If I sell him now and he hauls, I'm going to be fucking absolutely fuming to go against my own rule and have sold him before he even gets 3 games in my team. So for that alone, I think you can always kind of have everything go your way and then the ball just doesn't go in. And if I always say, like, you pick these players in your team for a reason. If you believe your reason and process is still correct, don't just jump ship 2 games in. Like, wait, like over 3-4 games, it should naturalize and get you the points. So I think if I had Traore now, I'll keep him for another game or 2. I wouldn't be doing like Traore to Salah, because Salah will then be another fire to put out in a few weeks. It's like I wouldn't just be jumping from one mid-priced asset to the next. For mid-priced assets, I like to hold them for the long term, because sometimes you sell them in the tough fixtures and that's when they haul, right? It's better to just hold them and just get the points, rack in the points. So my final question for you before we go to the Twitter questions is, so both on Jota and Greenwood, maybe their time is coming to an end in terms of nailed starters. Rafinha, we've heard in the live chat from FPL Dallas, he could actually be injured for 2 weeks. It's not definite yet. Benrahma has Europa. What are your thoughts on these kind of 6 to 7.5 million midfielders where they're not necessarily all going to be nailed in the long term? And like, I guess, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think you've got to pick those players that are more nailed. If you're going with this strategy, which I think you and I are going with, of switching in and out of the premiums in depending on fixtures, then you've got to have those assets that are more long term holds. So, and are they around now at the moment with, like you say, Jota, Greenwood, and Rafinha possibly being injured? You've got to kind of either think about coming off them and going down towards the Salah, Traore, Gray, Gallagher, and then you've got that option of 3 premiums. But you just got to keep an eye on it, really. I think particularly with injuries and stuff. I mean, if Rafinha's injured, Benrahma's in Europa, and Jota, it looks like he might be rotated. I mean, I'm gonna have to pull a wild card because I've got all 3 of them. So it's all about just keeping up to date with it and picking those mid-priced assets for the longer term.
No, that's really interesting. I just want to say, so we've got at One Life Soccer TV. So someone I interact with on Twitter, I think he knows Dread, and he does make an interesting point about, he actually disagrees. So we love to kind of have debate here. We don't want to spoon feed. Everyone plays differently. He actually prefers to kind of move those mid-priced players for when there's better games for another mid-priced player, and I do see the appeal in that. Say last year there was lots of budget value. There was the likes of kind of Souček and Dallas, I think, and there was even Gundogan at times where they were hauling, and I knew people with 107 million team value at the end of the season, and some weeks they had anywhere from 2 to 5 million in the bank. It wasn't the year of the premiums. This year, I think, where you've got the likes of kind of in the forward line, you've got Ronaldo, Lukaku, Kane, Vardy, all above that kind of 10 million price point. In mid, you've got Salah, Mane, you've got De Bruyne, who's yet to even feature really. You've got Son, you've got Bruno. There are so many premiums. And I think actually the person who's going to win their mini leagues this year, and this is a personal thought again, like we'll know at the end of the year, I could be completely wrong. The person who's going to win FPL, I think it's the person who has the 2 right premiums in the right weeks. And so for me personally this season, I'd like rather move with my free transfers between those premiums for captaincy and try to get those right. And like I agree with him to an extent. Like obviously you can move, but someone like showed me like a fixture run for say 7 mil midfielders, and they showed how they could change like 6 or 7 of them between now and game week 20. And in my eyes, it's kind of like that's 7 transfers that I could be using for captaincy. And there's so many premiums. I don't think they've all even come to the forefront yet. And maybe once they do start playing, like we will maybe have a different opinion on that. But he is right. I think you got to pick one of those two strategies. Either you keep your premium set and forget and move the budget price or mid-price players, or you keep the mid-price players and you move the premiums. And I think whichever strategy you go with, you kind of need to stick with it, because otherwise you're going to start like panicking and misbalancing your team to chase what other people's strategy is. So if his kind of view is that maybe the mid-price players can be moved and he does that well, he could win his mini league. So I'm not denying it could be right, but I just want to put that up on screen because it's nice to show that there are people with different views. They play differently, and none of us are right? We're all guessing, and we just hope we all do well.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Cool. So on that note, let's go to the Twitter questions. So we had a few questions come in from Twitter before we go to the live Q&A. I'm just going to pull these up very quickly. Some of them we have answered, so we will maybe make it quick fire, Luke. So at FPL Max, he's got an interesting question. He asks, what's the best strategy for tripling up on Chelsea, please?
Best strategy, or who do that, or which three?
I guess, yeah, who would you go for? So would it be 2 defenders and Lukaku?
I see, yes.
One defender, 1 mid and Lukaku? Like, what are you thinking?
Yeah, two defenders and Lukaku for me. And choices right now would be I'd have Rudiger and probably Alonso.
There is a question about Alonso coming up, but I won't go there yet.
That pause though says it all, right? That size, like which one of the two rotation
We're gonna clip this, Luke. You're gonna be on next week's show with Triggerlips when Alonso gets benched. What about you, Gabe? Who are your 3?
So I went with Reece James on Wildcard. I was quite surprised that he didn't start this past weekend, but I don't know. I think Rudiger, it has to be Rudiger. Lukaku is an obvious one. I want to say Mount, but Mount obviously got substituted at halftime, so he may be prone to tactical substitutions. So I guess the other one I would say is Reece James. I do think at the end of the year he's more nailed than Alonso, even though that hasn't been the case till now.
So I would definitely, obviously, Lukaku's the first one on the team sheet.
Yeah.
Rudiger's the second one for me. It's a tough one. I had looked at the likes of Mount and Havertz. I'm not convinced personally. I think I prefer double defense. Their defense seems incredible. I think Chelsea are going to win the title. So on that note, I did like Reece James like you. Dread, he says he would be going for Christensen. He's obviously only 5 million. I think maybe he's risen to 5.1. I don't know. But that's an appealing one as well. I think someone told me he'll probably start 7 or 8 out of every 10. So I think for those who don't want Reece James and Rudiger, Christensen's another one to think about. Alonso, you said, Luke, but there is a question about Alonso, so we'll cover Alonso more when we come to that. So next question, well, thank you at DCL Flag. He's actually, again, onto it. How long can we actually be comfortable before setting and forgetting Alonso? I think it's fire here. It's like playing with fire. I don't know what you think, Luke. You obviously mentioned him, so we'll ask you first.
Yeah, it is. I just feel like if you're going to go with 2 Chelsea defenders, then you might as well go with one that has a high upside, but also a higher chance of rotation, because the players, the defenders that have got the highest upside are the fullbacks, really, because they play a back 3 with the two wing backs. So I think Alonso and James are the ones that I'd go for. So you might as well take the risk, but I don't know how long we wait before we're actually comfortable. But he started every game so far, hasn't he?
He has, and Chilwell has been ready for a couple of weeks now. But I think it's important to note he went away with England. He didn't play. He probably wasn't match fit, and I think even when he came back to Chelsea, he still wasn't really match fit. And I believe Tuchel kind of made an announcement a couple of weeks back where it was like Chilwell's now in contention. So I think that's a new thing, and he's dropped to 5.6 million, I believe, overnight. So he's a wait and see. And I don't know. Like, I think Alonso on his current form, it's hard to see how he's benched. So I think if there was a time, I'd get him now. I don't know about setting and forgetting. If he got dropped for Chilwell, I just make the sideways transfer. But again, I find that rough. I'd rather go for Rudiger and feel safe. What about you, Gabe? Because talking of kind of -4s for breakfast, so you wildcarded Alonso in last year, and 1 week later, was it? You were like, "Fuck this," and -4'd him out, or was that Ricardo, P, or Dina? I don't know. Like,
No,
you have a
it was
love affair
Alonso.
with fullbacks.
It's really true, isn't it? I have a love affair with wing backs, man. They get me, like, just so many ways to points. The league is just trending in this direction. But no, it was Alonso last season. I brought Alonso in on my wild card, and the very next week he was right out of there. It was the right call at the time too, because he didn't do shit.
He blanked for a while, didn't he?
And FPL Joe held on to him, and he's usually the hitman, and he didn't follow his path that time, and it didn't work out for him. I don't think that there's something up with Chilwell. There's some. It feels like there's some information there that we don't have, but because I just don't believe after all this time in the league, all of a sudden the best defensive coach in the league comes and says, "You know what? Alonso's a better defender than Chilwell." And then there's just something there's something incongruous to reality about that. So I do think Chilwell, that should get resolved, and he'll come back in, and Alonso will be a rotation risk once again, in my opinion.
No, okay, nice. I want to just so at Life Soccer, he's replied. He said his strategy is free premiums. Currently, he's got Salah, Ronaldo, and Lukaku, similar to you, Gabe. And he is then shuffling, obviously, the mid guys. So Benrahma, Jota, Barnes, Sarr, Torres, Greenwood for any podcast listeners. And he's also targeting Norwich, which seems like a great plan. So I think in that strategy, that makes total sense. Like, if I was going to go for free premiums, I wouldn't then be rotating them with my transfers. I'd just stick with them. And yes, I would then be rotating those mids for sure. I think if I've only got the 2 premiums, that's where maybe then I would be rotating the premiums and keeping the mids. So I think it depends where you're looking to use your transfers and how your team's made. I like his system. All 3 of those premiums, they do feel like you could keep them. And I think actually people who want those free and don't jump on them soon, they will be priced out. So if you don't kind of have them, they're all going to rise. And then you're going to be even more stuffed in terms of midfield assets that you can't afford those budget enablers. So that's an interesting just side thought for any podcast listeners. I'm going to put this question up that came up from @Hibbo, who obviously can't be here with us today. It's a little bit of banging on my own drum. So I'm currently sitting at like a 1,000 rank, and I've never been this high in 9 years this early on. He said, "Can our FPL Nemo win FPL 21-22?" I don't know about that, Hibbo, mate. I'm not so sure, but you know, all I want is a triple-digit finish. That's like my wildest dream. That year when I finished 1,100, I was fucking gutted to not get the triple-digit finish. I'm having a look. I'm 36 points from first, 13 points from top 100. The points are bunched up because equally, in the same way I'm 36 points from first, I'm only 35 points from 100k. So I think it's way too early, Hibbo, to be putting this kind of pressure on me, mate. Please don't. Stop telling people I'm going to win on Twitter. You're fucking scaring me. There's only so long I can keep up back-to-back green arrows. Let me breathe a bit and stop fucking tweeting about my rank, guys. It's too early. It's too fucking early. What do you guys think? Can FPL Nemo win FPL 21-22?
I think we'll stop tweeting about your rank when you stop tweeting about your rank, Nemo.
So Scout Joe, he told me that I was being duplicitous because I posted my ranks and then also asked what are your dilemmas for the game week. He said, I'm allowed to post my ranks and say, look, I'm incredible. And I'm allowed to send another tweet that says, what are your dilemmas? But by combining the two, I'm being deceitful. So I took his advice. And this week I just said, look, I'm fucking amazing. I'm 92 in Sky. I'm 120 in Fan Team. I'm 80 in fucking Dream Team. I was like, fuck it. Like, I'm not asking no questions. I'm just great. And I thought, while I can, I'll write it. And you know what? It's crazy. I used to write 1,000-word articles, thousands of words. Only ever got me a couple dozen followers, Luke. I post one time that my rank's good, and I got like 300 fucking followers overnight. So, Jesus Christ! That's just
Make sure you thank Joe for that. Make sure you thank Joe for that, Nemo, for that tip.
Oh,
Yeah,
I can imagine.
Joe.
I mean, yeah. No matter what you post, there's always going to be someone who has a bit of an issue with it.
I like Joe. I like Joe, but one day, hopefully, inshallah, he'll invite me on to meet the manager. I don't know if he will, but hopefully, I like his show. I like him. He's incredible. He's got insane finishes. But I think the reality of the situation is, we were just having banter, and I think some people then said to him, "Oh, Joe, like you brag about your ranks too when you're doing well. How can you say this?" And he was like, "Look, like we're just joking." And I was like, "Yeah, don't worry. Like I get it. Well, we're just cracking jokes. Like he's a good guy. Yeah, like no beef there. But you know, Twitter loves to make a mountain out of a molehill. So just the last one or two questions, and let's just go live chat after this. So what to do with Greenwood, guys? So we obviously said Greenwood's taking less shots, Luke, since the arrival of Ronaldo. We've also said like he's been quite fortunate to get some of his points. What do you think about that?
I'd say hold for now.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm doing the same this week at least, especially if he doesn't start midweek, right?
Yeah, I don't think he'll start. I think we'll see a much changed team for Carabao, and he's been preferred for the Premier League. But yeah, I'd hold him for now.
I think so, and maybe when people who are looking to wildcard do that might be a time to jump off. At FPL Banger, another friend of the show, they have a fantastic podcast. They ask about Greenwood, but let's leave that. So they say, is transferring in Salah this week? Are we too late? This is kind of the last Twitter question.
No, don't think you're too late.
We're not. Okay. Yeah, I don't think so either. Not with Newcastle. So guys, we have 5 minutes with Luke. Please put any questions in the live Q&A that you have. So I know there were some questions earlier in the day, but if you've got any questions now, please start putting them in. I'll put them up on screen and we'll go through them. And then if there's still more questions once Luke is gone, I don't know if Gabe's would stay another 5 or 10 after that, but we can kind of continue answering them. But it's been a pleasure these last 90 minutes with you, Luke. And I'm looking forward to seeing you at that meetup on I think it's the 3rd of October, hopefully. If you've not had your child yet by then.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, I've just got to make sure I only have one beer.
Yeah, exactly. Because at any point you could be called to the hospital.
Exactly. But no, I'm really
looking forward
Gallagher
to it. Yeah, for that, by the way. Before the live questions, will you own Gallagher for that?
Oh, yes, we were saying that, weren't
we?
It'd be very tempting. I'll be very tempted to get Gallagher in for that game.
Him,
yeah.
All right, let's go to @Neil's Apple. So he says, should you play the way you enjoy and aim for top 10k, or play it safe and be in 1k? So I guess I find that weird because, like, if you were in top 10k around game week 30 and you ask me, that's different. I think now where we've said the difference between first and 100k is only 70 points, I'm not so sure.
I mean, or is he kind of saying, look, no matter what happens, you play the way you enjoy, you get in the top 10k, or what would you prefer, sort of thing?
Yeah, would you rather get a top 10k finish or a top 1k? If
I see. Yes, sorry.
1K,
I see what you mean.
would you, I guess, would you, if you played safe and you got top 1k, maybe boring, let's say, versus you have fun, take some risks, but end up at a worse rank?
Yeah,
that's tough. I think I'd rather play it safe and get top 1k.
So would I. What about form over fixture? So from Key H, form over fixture. I'm a fixture man, but I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I think I am, but I wouldn't bring in a player completely off form for a player absolutely on fire.
Yep. At FPL Dallas, these are quick fire, Luke. So we're going 2 minutes. So Grealish to Salah for this week, or is that too short term? They're looking to hold on to the wildcard to around game week 14.
Gabe, you answer that one.
He's passing on this question. That's great. No, not really. I would keep Grealish because City's fixtures turn so hard for the better, and Grealish is involved in a lot of the kind of creativity around the box in that team. So I think when the fixtures turn, I think you're going to want Grealish back.
Okay. Yeah. Dwight McNeil versus a poor left side of Leicester and Norwich. I like McNeil as a player. I'm not looking at a Burnley attacker unless it's Wood.
No, I think there's far more options. Yeah.
Bruno, keep or sell. They have Lukaku and Salah, no Ronaldo. They've kept with Bruno at Jones Blake 79. At this point, what do you think from what you've been seeing? Is Bruno a no-go? Do you keep him if you've already got him?
So he's got Bruno, Salah, and Lukaku. I'll just keep Bruno for now. Yeah. Life
Soccer TV, for your namesake, is Luke Shaw a trap?
He could be, I'm a United fan and I'm really not confident in our defence at all. So unless he's getting attacking returns, you're not getting the points. I mean, I wish I'd have just gone for Chelsea defenders at the start. I mean, I'd be laughing now instead of going. I think there's an example really where you pick the quality over the fixtures, and Chelsea have just been smashing it no matter who they've been playing. So yeah,
They've been incredible, right? So a couple final questions for you, Luke, just as we rush through. So from Horduffy, like, you were talking about when do you know when to go for a player who hasn't hauled, but the stats and eye tests have aligned. So like that Antonio 4 goals against Norwich a couple of seasons back. Like, what are you looking for to combine? Like, they've not got the points, but what is it from eye test and stats?
So basically, when is Adama going to score his 4 goals in one match? When is that going to happen?
I'm a bit like that. I work on probabilities. If I'm betting on roulette and there's been 10 red in a row, the probability is that, then I know it's just as likely.
Gamblers fallacy.
But exactly. It's a well-known thing, and I like to go on that with FPL as well. And I think if somebody's massively underperforming their stats, then that's when to get them in, I think. But not always. I think with someone like Traore, you got to look at his past seasons as well. Has he done it before? It's tricky. So I to be honest, I don't know the answer to that.
So one of the best reasons I saw for buying him was from the singer at FPL Pig, and he said, "Built like a brick shithouse." And I thought, when you run out of reasons to promote a player in FPL, and you've got to say that, is worrying times. At Tinesh B, would you drop Mount or Traore? So he went for Mount and Traore as punts. The week he got Mount played 0 minutes. Now he's come off at half time. The following week he got Traore. He just wants to get rid of one of them. Which one are you raised transferring out if it was you?
Traore.
Yeah, I think so. Target Everton now.
Mount. Gotta get rid of Mount. If he's going to be a tactical rotation, at least Traore is going to play.
Guys, Ramanathan, target Everton now after last week's Villa performance?
What, target them playing against them?
As in, like, buy players against them. I guess we're all talking about maybe keeping Ronaldo in Gameweek 7 because he faces Everton, but I wouldn't be buying players just because they're facing Everton.
No, neither would I, no.
Just a final couple for you. Ray asks, what's your drink of choice at the meetup in October if you can make it? Because you are going to have just the one, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, if I could have anything, I like the emoji that he's put up there. I like a Godfather, which is whiskey and amaretto mixed.
Nice. Wildcard, we talked about this earlier. Gameweek 7 or wait till after Gameweek 8 international break? For me, it's a wait. What about you guys?
Yeah, me, it's a wait.
Would you rather target Chelsea defense or Man City? I like the idea of one from each and not doubling on Chelsea personally.
Yeah, I think that's a good strategy, actually, and that's probably what I'll do now you've said that.
I'm looking at that. Yes, he is interesting.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Defense the real deal, or have they just had good fixtures? They're obviously 4th in the table. They had incredible XG last year. I think they were the best home defense since Christmas. What do you guys think?
I think they're the real deal.
We've all got Sanchez anyway, so like unless you're looking to double up, I don't know what is being asked here. If you don't have Rafinha, would you get him instead of Jota or Greenwood? Well, if you don't have Jota or Greenwood, I don't know if I'd be looking to get either of them anyway. And it sounds like Rafinha might be out for 2 weeks, so we'll move on. Do you prefer Salah or Gray short term?
Salah.
Me too. Yeah, me too. Gray with 3 shots, 3 goals, not for me. Final question. Get Reece James and Chilwell. Also get Diaz and a couple of nailed sub 5 million defenders and you're good. So, well, I don't think it's a question, but I think it's a point that some people have been talking about this. Like I've been seeing a lot of kind of 4-3-3s, 4-4-2s. I think there is incredible value in the defense. Those kind of, I guess, 5.5 to 6.5 defenders. They're probably going to score more points over a season than the equal value players in midfield. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
He's saying he's taking out Harrison. Who would you bring in for a straight swap? Saw. Easy peasy. Gallagher is a wait and see. I think the free fixtures aren't great. So on that note, Luca, I'm going to let you go. We've kept you for an hour and 40 minutes. It's been a pleasure. I think, Gabriel, if you're willing to stay an extra 5 minutes, we'll answer a couple of final questions. But Luke, it's been amazing. I hope to see you on the 3rd, and I hope to see you on Triple Captain. We'll coordinate a time, and I'll give you that StreamYard tour next time.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate you having me, and
no worries,
it's been
Luke.
Great. Take care.
Pleasure,
yeah,
man.
I'll speak to you on I'll speak to you on Twitter, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, take care, man.
Cheers.
Take care. All right, Gabriel, how are you feeling? So we've got JVS saying he's going to come back to the next stream. Thank you so much, mate. We really appreciate that. I think the next one's going to hopefully be on Thursday. It's the matchups show. So what we normally do is Hibbo and I do the kind of the early week views on a Monday. We have guests on, and then on Wednesday or Thursday, depending on if it's a Friday or Saturday deadline, Mariner and Gabriel do the matchups show where they look at all of what's going to come. They look at the captaincy metric, which had an 80% success rate last season. But yeah, it's been a pleasure, obviously, to have Luke. For anyone who missed out, I don't know who's not seen it, but I'm just having a quick look if there's any funny things to watch. Why don't we, while some questions come in, guys, send us a few final questions. While we do that, I'm going to show you the clip from the first ever guest we had, Tom Stevenson. He's currently #1 in the Live Scout Hall of Fame, best manager in the world ever. And we brought him on, and 1 minute in, I said he was the 5th member of the Net That Hall crew, and I had a bit of a tumbleweed moment. So while I enjoy some self-deprecating humor, send in any final questions you have for Gabriel and I. We're going to go to 1 hour 45, so 5 more minutes. But enjoy me humiliating myself here. Definitely our most popular member of the Net That Hall crew, and you can definitely be our 5th crewmate now going forwards. Definitely be our 5th crewmate now going forwards.
Hello, darkness, my old
So, just while we're here as well, guys, so please do continue. All right, so please do continue to hit like and subscribe if you're new, guys. Thank you all for tuning in. So we have one question, which is, what color is London, from Javier? It's definitely red. They asked Wenger a few years ago, like, do you feel that Tottenham have closed the gap, or like, and all this stuff? And he said, when I last checked, they're still 3 miles down the road, about 20 titles behind us, and have won League Cup in 23 years. So moving on, is Joelinton a better asset than Kane?
Ooh.
Well, Kane is doing incredibly with his no shots or touches in the box the game before. I think 1 shot in the last game, who knows? But he was playing right wing back, it looked like to me, in the last game. This is why you don't keep a player when you can sell him for 150 mil. You kind of cash in. I think Levi missed the trick there personally.
So, but do you think Levy will get involved and force Nuno to play Kane at the tip just to keep his value? Because if he keeps playing him the way he's playing him, he's going to be losing.
He won't be 60 million
every day. Every day he's losing millions on the player value. So
no, I think you're right. I think they've got a pound shop Mourinho, and I hate to say it, but Levi said they want to play attacking football, and he hired an Italian sporting director and a pound shop Mourinho, and that's my view. And they're 2 world-class players, and Son and Kane are both 29. Kane wants to leave. Son signed a new contract, fair enough, but I think there's a lot more problems than we're seeing, and it's big talk from me in an Arsenal shirt, considering it's the North London derby on the weekend. But you know, last week, 8 days ago, people were telling me, look, Arsenal's 20th, Tottenham's 1st. If we win by 2 goals next week, we go ahead of them. So fucking hell, guys, you need to calm down on Twitter. Jesus fucking Christ. Next one. Am I crazy to hit back in Antonio for my 3rd striker? I took him out for Bamford last week. I could bring him back. Would you take a -4 for Antonio?
That means removing Bamford.
Well, yeah, let us know, Tinesh, in the comments. Are you removing Bamford? Leonardo, if you had both Torres and Jota, who do you get rid of? Torres for me.
Again, I just wait. We need more news. We need more news.
It's
on
way
Firmino.
too early. I'll be waiting till Friday, Saturday for my moves. Yeah.
And here's the thing: when KDB starts, if Torres keeps playing at the 9, then he's actually probably a pretty good asset.
Yeah. No, I agree. Andy Martin, prediction for bottom 3, Gabe.
Goddamn predictions.
I know you don't do predictions.
I think that's probably why Andy's doing this. He's bottom 3. I want to say the teams I guess are in the bottom 3. So I would say no offense, but I guess it is offensive. So I'm going to go with Norwich, Burnley, and I don't know who else. Who's that last one?
Please relegate those Orcs. Like those Orcs, Burnley. Like how they don't get red cards a week in week. Their last red card was in 2019. That tells you all you need to know about the state of British refereeing. Who's your 3rd team? So Burnley, Norwich,
and I don't know the 3rd one. I don't want Newcastle to get relegated. I really don't, but I'm going to throw them in there as well.
I think Newcastle, Watford, they're all in danger. Brentford have looked okay. I don't think they have the depth to survive all season. There's a good 5 or 6 there that are in trouble.
Yeah.
He said, fair enough. Javier says it's blue. I can't argue with that. I'm just looking at the North London part, but he is right. London is blue. Saint Maximan, a trap or not? Yeah, like it's an interesting one. Callum Wilson's still out. I think Saint Maximan is an incredible player. They should build their team around him. He is ex-lively, as we call it.
Is he a trap or not, though?
I wouldn't be
Good
buying him
question.
at 6.5. I'd buy him at 5.5 personally.
I'd buy him at 6.0. I don't think he's a trap. I just think he's a little expensive.
So Life Soccer asks, template has started strong. Do we need De Bruyne and Kane to start to like pop again before that template just gets thrown out the park?
I think we need De Bruyne. I don't think we need Kane. I think we have two big hitting premium forwards. Plus we have Antonio, but De Bruyne would be nice.
Fair enough. I'm just going to rattle through these. So 5 premium defenders from Gameweek 8, 2 Chelsea, 2 City, and Trent. Not in a fucking million years, Tony. I don't know what Gabe thinks. Like, go for it if you like.
Exactly.
I like to win, and I'm not winning like that. So
those are quality assets that are going to provide excellent value for what they are.
But you can never sell them. You have to hold them if you go.
And you're stuck. Yeah. So if that's your thing, I mean, I think you could get points from it, but that's a really...
You can, but then you've got to get those 6.5 mil mid rotations or 6.5 strike rotations.
You have to hit that.
And if you get those wrong and own them at the wrong time, I
You're
don't think
some
those
dark
back five
game
carry your
weeks.
points. Yeah.
Wow.
Jones bloke, Kovacic or Gallagher? Gallagher all day for me.
Yes.
I would not go near Kovacic, and Chelsea fans told me the same. Bamford to Antonio on a free transfer. They're going to captain Salah. Like, I wouldn't have brought in Bamford to sell him this week, but like if it's no hit, then yeah, why not? If you fancy Antonio to outscore him
in a vacuum, yes.
Favorite ever footballer did not play for your team. His is Fenomeno Ronaldo.
I mean, my team. I guess mine would. I guess Socrates, the Brazilian.
Okay. Now I'm a Ronaldinho guy. Anyone who looks like they're having so much fun and pure joy playing the sport, like just that smile, that's enough for me. The other player I would say, well, in 1998, watching Michail score against Argentina, I was 8 years old. I love that shit.
It was 1994 Yakini when he scored the first goal for Nigeria in a World Cup, and he's holding the just for that moment, Yakini as well.
Nice. So thoughts on Adam Armstrong as an enabling forward. I like the Tony to Armstrong switch when the Southampton fixtures move. I think they have great fixtures for anyone wildcarding soon.
I think he's the budget forward to own, and I'm gonna die on the hill that Dennis is not a good pick, but I could be really bad. Horribly wrong.
Best goalkeeper long term, Jose Sarr, Meslier, Ramsdale. If Ramsdale's playing, which I'm not sure he's nailed, let's see if Leno starts in midweek and if Ramsdale starts in North London Derby. If that's the case, then I think he's number one at 4.5. You can't go wrong with an Arsenal goalkeeper that faces Liverpool between now and like November. I'm not spending 5 million Sarr when there's like Semedo at 4.9. And I'm not spending 5 million on Meslier from what the fuck we've seen from Leeds defense. Pre-season, I said Meslier might be the best 5 million set and forget. I fucking regret that. Should we be looking at Villa players? I like the look of Watkins personally. Not yet. I like the look of Watkins. Traore out. And I think I've been asking who is Gary a few times.
Probably Gray.
I think it is Gray. I would not be buying Gray for Traore. Like, no fucking way.
No.
I'd be looking at Sarr. I'd be looking at Gallagher. I'd be looking at Decore. I'd be looking at a whole host of players. And I personally would not go for Gray. People will say because Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison are out, it's a good thing. I think that makes their team worse. What else do we have? Smash the likes, guys. Please do help. If there's anyone here who's not hit like and you've enjoyed the stream, please do. This is the last time I'll ask. Thoughts on Brentford defenders? I know some people are going for Raya in goal.
I just think there are better options. I don't like any of the 4 or 5 defenders. I still don't feel like I know enough about Brentford to really invest in them. So I would wait on Brentford for quite some time.
I don't want their defense. I don't like promoted teams' defense, but that's me. Nehal, thoughts on Greenwood to Sarr or Ayling to Marcel? Which one is better? That's tough. Because I'm talking about maybe Ayling to Rudiger or Semedo this week. I'm looking at maybe Jota to Sarr. Greenwood's not on my radar to sell yet, but he will be a problem soon, I think. Rashford's apparently kind of ahead of schedule in training, let's say, from the surgery. And I don't like what I've been seeing from Greenwood since Ronaldo's arrival. But what do you think, though? I'd probably move on Ayling personally, but what do you think?
I think I would do the Greenwood to Sarr move because I don't trust Marcel. I don't know about Wolves' defense. And I think Marcel is a bit of a trap in that where he got 2 assists in a game where I think he had an XA of 0.05, if I'm not mistaken. One of those assists I think was on an own goal. So I don't think Marcel.
I wouldn't go near him. No, he's the reason Wolves lost the last game. Ike Nouri's waiting. He's 100%. A Golden Boy nomination. I would not be risking that shit.
He ruined that game for Wolves.
Yeah, so Tinesh, he's got the front three of Bamford, Antonio, Ron. It would be Bamford -4 to Antonio. I don't think I would in that situation.
Front three of Bamford, Antonio, and Ron.
And you want to stick the -4 to undo Bamford back to Antonio.
No,
not -4. Free transfer, yes.
Yeah.
Chilwell at 5.3, so he's 5.6 for 1. If he does start starting, yes, he's definitely one to consider. Thoughts on bringing in Zaha? No, I'd rather have Gallagher personally. I'm just going to rattle through these because I've drunk a few cans and I need to get to the restroom and end this stream. Armstrong versus El Yanusi. I've heard good stuff about El Yanusi. His numbers have looked good. He's performed well. I think it's a 50-50. I like Armstrong. I don't know yet. Let's wait till game week 8. Come back to net that haul in a few.
They're different positions and they're also different prices as well. Yanusi's a 5.5 midfielder, if I'm not mistaken, and Armstrong's a 6.0 forward. So
Gallagher, Zaha, Edward, Gallagher for me. We've said this guy's risky. Is Livramento a lord yet? No. A 5-pointer off the bench. That's not close to the likes of Lundstrom and Dallas before him and Wan-Bissaka before them. Not even close. Gabriel in for Ayling. Gabriel could, of course, he's number 1. Like, he's keeping his place. Mari is not fucking starting ahead of Gabriel. I'd be getting Tomiyasu at 4.5, not Gabriel of 5 million. I'd even probably go Tierney ahead of Gabriel. Final question, and this is the last one we're going to answer before we go. What would you say is a bigger priority? Getting rid of Torres or going from Bamford to Antonio? That's tough because you said actually wait and see on Torres. But if he was determined to sell one, I would be selling Torres. If he's can play them both, I would just roll a transfer and have 2 the following week, but I'm a patient manager.
If you can roll a transfer, I agree, try to roll the transfer. But if not, I'm aggressive, so I would sell Bamford for Antonio.
Nice. Okay, so before we go, I'm just going to say, guys, thank you to everyone who's come tonight. It's been incredible. Thank you. We're on 38 likes. That's more than the number of live viewers now, 31. So thank you for supporting us. We have played the silence clip already of Tumbleweed, but one last time for Nick, for Triggerlips. For anyone who doesn't know, one of the best managers of all time. In a 5-year spell, his worst rank was 1,700 in the world and 4 top 1Ks. So to see us out, I'm going to show the video of last Monday's show of what happened when Nick found out Gray scored. And I just want to announce next Monday's guest. So we're talking a lot about the Chelsea fixture swing. We have made sure we bring you guys at FPL Tips Harry, a Chelsea fan, to basically tell us what's the crack with Chelsea. So anyone who wants to know who the best 3 Chelsea assets, don't take our word for it. Wait for FPL Tips Harry to come next Monday on the stream and ask him. In the meantime, it's been a pleasure, Gabe. We'll chat backstage. But guys, enjoy this clip with Nick and look at what FPL does to all of us at the worst of times. That's devastating.
Next on pulp.
BetLiveFPL.net is going to crash. Let's have a look. Oh, wow. The average and the safety score have gone way up.
Having DCL out and then having that prick Gray score, it's just like... it's ruined my fucking day, though. You know, you get...
It's ruined my day too, to be fair.
All 10 midfielders blank, don't they? And you just know that fucking Gray's going to come along and fuck up your game week.
On a Monday night.
Except all the pricks on Twitter who've all got him. That's the only people who were... 99% of people posting on Twitter tonight will have him.
All the rest will have
turned off.
Or Gameweek